Welcome, everyone, to the Pick Six podcast, where we discuss the biggest stories in college football. I'm your host, Chris Chang, and as a reminder, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. A big welcome to all of our new subscribers. Listen, guys, if you have a story idea or a suggestion to make our show better, drop us a line at thepick6guys@gmail.com. Email in the description below. Guys, we have finally made it. The college football playoffs is here. It's upon us. We haven't reached our final destination, but hopefully the first stop and a good run to a championship for our Canes. Guys, this is going to be the biggest game in program history, probably since the 2003 Fiesta Bowl, 23 years since that game. I'm excited, as you can tell. This is going to absolutely be a battle of the juggernauts. We've got two similar programs that almost mirror each other, or are programs on a parallel path. Sadly, Texas A&M kind of sputtering towards the end, struggling with South Carolina, getting their butts handed to them by Texas, their rival. But we saw a team last year losing the last game to a rival, win a championship. Can that happen for Texas A&M? I don't know. But then we've got Miami on the other side, who is clicking since their last loss, stringing out 4 wins in a row in dominant fashion, making their way, some would say sneaking, think that's a lie, into the CFP. But I digress. Here are some things we kind of want to look at, maybe keep an eye on and think about, right? So we've got two similar quarterbacks. One is a vet, one is a sophomore, redshirt freshman, right? Both have offensive weapons that can really stretch the field. Both have very, very strong lines, whether it's on the defensive line, on the offensive line. So on both sides of the ball, super strong in the trenches. Both teams heavily penalized, not that disciplined. Miami having 91, Texas A&M not too far behind them with 90 penalties on the year. Little fun fact, as we're watching this game, maybe keep in mind, both coordinators for Texas A&M will be leaving the program to go on to new jobs after the season is over. Can we send them packing early? That's my hope. I won't even bury the lead. Let's just get into it. I think Miami's winning. I think I'm very confident in it. I think Miami is going to win bigger than a spread. I think the closest that Texas A&M will come at sniffing a victory will be maybe 1 to 3 points. Now, you're probably thinking I'm crazy. You're probably thinking I'm a homer. And you're probably thinking I have not done my research. My goal in this video is to hopefully show you how Miami gets there. So let's first look at some of the groups on each team and see who has the bigger edge. First, let's look at quarterbacks, right? So both quarterbacks eerily similar. I'm going to give the edge to Miami for 2 reasons. One, Carson Beck is a vet. He's been here before. He's been in the CFP. Marcel Reed, not so much. Also, Beck is throwing at a more accurate completion rate, right? He's got 75% completion rate, whereas Marcel Reed is only throwing at 62%. Both are averaging exactly 8.7 yards a catch, and both have 25 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. So there is a little boom or bust between both guys. When they make mistakes, it can go south pretty quickly, but Miami has the edge in the quarterback room. Let's move over to the running back room, right? I'm going to give this, it's clear, as much as I love Mark Fletcher and all of our guys, and love the fact that we've got Pringle showing up late in the season as a third head in this beast of a running back room. Texas A&M has got some horses, and especially with the help of their dual threat quarterback, Marcel Reed, Texas A&M has 2,312 yards so far this year. They're averaging 5 yards a carry and have 28 touchdowns on the ground. Miami, conversely, though, has 1,800 yards. They're averaging about 4.2 yards a carry and only have 23 yards on the ground. Favor Texas A&M. Moving over to our aerial attack, I'm giving this to Miami, and I know what you're thinking, but Texas A&M has Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver. Sadly, after that, there's a pretty big drop-off in production. They have a third option who is their more explosive receiver. We'll talk a little bit about him later on in the show. But when you look at Texas A&M's wide receiver room, only having those 3 real options, whereas Miami can tend to spread the ball around more and use different guys in different formations, I give them the edge. Miami already has 7 wide receiver with over 100 yards this season. Wide receivers. I'm not even talking about aerial threats in terms of running backs who can run out or tight ends. I'm talking about just wide receivers. 7 of them have over 100 yards. So I give the edge to Miami. They're both polar opposites when it comes to Miami and Texas A&M and their approach to how they like to use their wide receivers. Texas A&M relies heavily on this explosive down the field play calling, whereas Miami is a bit more methodical with their play calling, and they use more shorter, more efficient throws, right? Next, let's take a look at the defenses, right? Both have pretty good defenses. I'm going to, however, give the edge to Miami in Miami by far. And I know you're thinking that there are definitely weapons on the side of Texas A&M. We'll talk about one of them, but when you look at Miami, Miami wins in almost every single metric on the defensive side of the ball, right? Whether it's holding teams to fewer points, Miami's only allowing 15 points a game, whereas Texas A&M is allowing 24. Maybe it's fewer yards that Miami's only allowing, right? Miami's only allowing 286 versus Texas A&M's allowing 332. And then this is the most glaring stat, and I think one of the most important stats. Let's talk about the turnover margin, right? Miami is +9, Texas A&M -7. So if you go back and you remember those line charts I used to do in math, and you like 0 in the middle, you go over 9, man, you're talking about two teams on polar opposite sides of the spectrum. Miami dominating the ball, pick sixes. Listen, our specialty. We love them. Hopefully, we'll get one this weekend. Miami also tends to control the clock a little bit better and limits the number of plays per game, getting offenses off the field. And I will give Texas A&M credit. They do have a higher sack percentage and are getting to the QB way more often. But again, when you look at the metrics, Miami is clearly the better defense. Last, another thing I want to look at is special teams. Now you're thinking, who cares about kickers? Why do we care about kickers? Well, you're looking at another major discrepancy between these two teams. I've talked about and I've highlighted so far. These teams are very similar. Here's where they diverge. Miami has a better and way more consistent kicker, who's 41 for 41 and extra points kicked. He's 15 for 17 in field goals kicked, and he's 1 for 1 for field goals over 50 yards, crushing 87.5% success rate when he kicks. Guys, you can't beat that. Whereas Randy Bond, Texas A&M's kicker, a little bit more shaky, only hitting 11 of 18 his field goals, 0 for 3 past the 50-yard line, only has a success rate of 61%. So this thing comes down to a field goal. Again, edge Miami clearly. Also, while this may seem like kind of a silly stat, again, field placement, where teams are going to start off is important. Miami has an 89% touchback rate compared to Texas A&M 64%. So things we're going to want to pay attention to and keep an eye on. Listen, again, I know I said Miami. I do want to highlight though for some of our viewers who may not be following Texas A&M, there are some players on the offense that you really are going to want to keep an eye on, and you're going to probably see them either making major plays or they're going to be the reason why they win the game. So first, we're going to talk about QB Marcel Reed. This guy's a dual threat quarterback, crushing it. I mean, when this guy is hot, he's hot. So far has almost 3,000 yards, 2,932 yards, averaging 8.7 yards, like we were saying earlier, a throw. Only has a 62% completion rating, though, however. Like I was alluding to, though, earlier, he does like to throw the ball far. His long is 86, so they like those explosive plays. He's got 25 touchdowns, been sacked about 10 times. The guy's still really good, though. The guy, you give him time, he's going to cause problems. And so Marcel Reed is how this game goes, is how Marcel Reed goes. So we really want to keep an eye on what he does. Contain him would be the goal. But one of his favorite weapons, a guy that we are semi-familiar with, Kate Concepcion from the former Wolfpack, has been crushing it this year. This guy is got 886 yards, averaging 15.5 yards a catch. Guys, that's a monster. He's got 9 touchdowns on the season so far. He is absolutely a game changer. My goal is, or our goal, hopefully as a team, will be to shut him down, force him to get really uncomfortable. Texas A&M tends to be a little weak against the zone coverage. Hopefully, we can get some guys on that guy. If we need to, double team him. But I don't think that's necessarily the only thing we need to do because they have got another guy on the opposite side of the field named Mario Craver. He's got just as many yards, 825 yards, averaging 15.9 yards a catch. Again, just as efficient, only has 4 touchdowns, though, compared to Concepcion's 9. And then we're going to talk about the third weapon that they have in Ashton Bethel Roman. Doesn't have the 800 yards like Concepcion or Craver, but he is the guy who tends to get down the field a lot. He's got 459 yards. He's averaging 23 yards of reception. So he's the breakout guy that they really, really like to get the ball to when they want to get an explosive play down the field. You'll see him called a lot. Next, I'm going to highlight a player who got a little mouthy, got a little bit loud right when the game was announced that we'd be playing each other, but I'm not going to lie, he is going to be probably a problem. He is going to be testing probably 2 of our best players, and that his name is Trey Zune, I think his name is. He's their left tackle. I think he's one of the very few players who has 500 snaps as a tackle and 500 snaps as a center. This guy is weathered. He's been through it. He's enormous. This guy's huge. He's the highest graded lineman in all of college football. He was awarded the best SEC lineman. And fun fact, Texas A&M loves to run the ball on the left side, and you can kind of understand why. Moving over on the other side of the ball, another player you're going to want to keep an eye out for is Cassius Howell. He's a transfer from Bowling Green. He's their Ruben Bain for all intents and purposes. This guy is a beast as well, standing at 6'2", 248 pounds. He's got 29 tackles so far this season, 11 and a half sacks, 1 forced fumble, and he has been named the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So this guy is no joke. Watch out where he's lined up on the side of the field. He's either going to be facing up against our big guy, Francis Mauigoa, CC Mauigoa, or he's going to go up against our Frankenstein freak and Markel Bell. Either way, I like the matchup. Would prefer that he's lined up against CC because he's the more experienced lineman. But either way, again, I still feel confident when it comes to that. Let's talk about some few keys to the game. Let's start with Miami, right? So for Miami, one of the keys to the game, the first one I want to start off with is establishing the run. I think games where we are effectively running the ball, getting at least 4.5 yards a carry, we crush it. We look really, really good. I think in the Texas A&M game, in the NC State game, we were averaging somewhere along the lines of, I think, 5 yards a carry, which again, that was a great example of us effectively running the ball. And so hopefully we can do the same. And that's where I want to see. Is our O-line getting pushed back by this huge Texas A&M D-line? Because again, I think probably looking at most of the teams across the CFP, Texas A&M has one of the biggest D-lines besides us, right? So how do we fare against this team? Can we get the push? Can we create some dominance, right? That's my second key to the game for Miami is dominate play in the O-line trenches. Can we push that line? Can we keep Carson Beck upright and clean, right? And can we create big holes for that run game? Again, we said it all year and we get it. This game's going to be won in the trenches. This is our bread and butter. This is the strongest part of our team. Again, where this O-line goes and how we defend and how we can get push is going to dictate where this game goes for us. Next, third key of the game that I think is really important. How versatile is our play calling? I want to keep it fresh. I want to keep it open. I want to see the Wildcat. I think Miami has a wild card in the Wildcat because Tony has touch and he can throw the ball, right? So it's not your traditional Wildcat where you're just going to have a tailback back there who's going to run the ball and pitch it. Tony can throw it, okay? So I want to see end arounds, jet sweeps, flea flickers. Open it up, Shannon. This is it. There's nothing left. It's win or go home, right? So how do we look? Are we the UM the first 5 weeks of the season, which is smashing the A gap, or are we UM in November, who's just opening it up, explosive, dynamic, fast, getting to the outside? I think that's going to dictate how Miami fares in this game. Next, and lastly for Miami, lock down defense is a key to the game. You have to make Texas A&M drive the length of the field, limit those explosive plays. Do not let Marcel Reed get outside the edges. Do not let him make plays with his feet. Do not let him extend drives with his feet. Crush them on those third downs. That is so important when it comes to this defense. Give up, a couple yards here. Again, a couple first downs here and there. I'm fine. The bend don't break mentality that we've been doing all season. That's what I want to see. What I don't want to see is I don't want to see Marcel Reed running around the backfield for about 4 or 5 seconds and then finding a Casey Concepcion randomly 20 yards down the field, right? After like 10 seconds. So again, making sure we get to the quarterback quick, locking down those wide receivers so that Marcel Reed gets really flustered, and then hopefully either breaking up passes, stuffing the run, or getting Marcel Reed on his butt. That's how I think Miami really stays and wins this game, realistically. Now, some keys to the game for Texas A&M. Marcel Reed, Marcel Reed, Marcel Reed. Where he goes is where the Aggies will go. Again, when Marcel Reed is struggling, we saw it against Texas, and we saw it somewhat in the first half against South Carolina. That's where the Aggies went. Again, this team is not meant to be really playing from behind too much, except for that South Carolina game. And again, had Reed not turned the switch on in that second half of that South Carolina game, I think we could have seen it go south, even more south quickly. Also, kind of got to give credit to South Carolina for dropping the biggest ball and the biggest L in known history by far. Also, I think Reed needs to be successful with his feet and his arms. I don't think Texas A&M gets the W and moves on in the CFP without both. I think you're going to have to see him get somewhere in the ballpark of maybe like 40 to 60 yards on the ground, whether that's extending drives, designed runs, whatever it is. But you're going to need him to be a full, successful dual threat quarterback to win. With that, like I was mentioning, extending those plays. Miami's Achilles tendon happens to be when plays drag on for longer, wide receivers tend to find themselves open. And again, I can totally see Casey Concepcion or Craver getting open in space if they're given time. And so again, we need Akeem Mesidor, we need Ruben Bain shutting those edges down, forcing him forward, and then letting those creatures on the D-line swallow him up. I think another aspect for Texas A&M would be stretching the field with explosive plays. That's their bread and butter, like we were talking about. We want to see how far can they throw the ball. We've seen 86-yard passes, 76-yard passes for Craver and Bethel Roman. I mean, Casey Concepcion has a 48-yard reception long. How many of those do they get? My hope and my guess is that when you have beasts like Ruben Bain and Akeem Mesidor slamming down on the edge, that's not going to give Reed too much time. So hopefully we'll be limiting those explosive plays. Next, I think if Texas A&M wants to win this game, they're going to have to go up early and make Miami play from behind. Very similar to what Louisville did. Louisville was easy to go up on us by 2 scores in the first quarter, and we were playing catch up. While again, we traded the field goal in for a touchdown, and then we threw that last pick, which caused us to lose the game. Had we not made those 2 mistakes, had things gone different in either of those 2 things, would we have won? Maybe. I don't know. Either way, it made it hard for us. Also, again, turnovers being very crucial. You look at the SMU game when JoJo Trader's pass bumped off his chest and they were able to get that pick, set them up for a very quick score, changed the dynamic and the momentum of the game. I think if Texas A&M can get up early, 2 scores, maybe even 2.5 scores, 17 points, they're going to run away with it. It'll be pretty easy for them to win this. Next, and the last thing that we're going to talk about for Texas A&M as their keys to winning this game, discipline tackling. Texas A&M's defense, they've got 6 players in key positions at DB and linebacker who all have a 25% or higher chance of missing tackles. These guys are not grading great on Pro Football Focus. It's funny because you can be two things at the same time, right? So they do have a pretty decent secondary, but when they miss tackles, they give up a lot of yards after the catch. That plays into Miami's favor because our wide receivers, that's their bread and butter, is yards after catch. So if Texas A&M can make those tackles, maybe allow a catch here or there, but get those guys down right away, it's really going to play into their favor. Things I think we should all be keeping an eye on in this game, right? The first thing I'm looking at is Miami in the red zone versus Texas A&M's red zone defense. Miami's got I think a 94% success rate in scoring when it comes to once they're in the end zone. And the Aggies are allowing, I think, up to 86, right? Yeah. 80. Yeah. That's brutal. 87 basically percent of the time opponents are scoring when they get in. How does that work? Again, I would like to see Miami trade in field goals for touchdowns, but in a game like this, I think a field goal could put us up and put us over for the win. Second thing we're going to want to keep an eye on, those lines of scrimmage. We talked about it earlier in the show. Who's getting the push, right? Who's dominating, right? Is it Texas A&M's D line? Is it Miami's dominant O line, right? Who is creating the necessary gaps? Is Texas A&M's big left side really getting that push, creating wide holes for them to break through and get that stable of running back space to run down the field? It's going to be crucial. Who is keeping their QB upright is another thing we've got to talk about. Again, we've talked about how both of these quarterbacks, highly successful, pretty accurate for the most part, Carson Beck being more, but both also being prone to throwing interceptions, right? Who keeps their quarterback upright and with the least amount of pressure without getting sacked or making a pick, fumbling the ball? That's another major issue because a lot of these guys get snuck up from behind. Again, both teams have great edges that can sneak up, strip the ball. Who wins the line of scrimmage? Again, just talked about it. QB play is another thing we're going to want to keep an eye on. The team with the better QB, it's as elementary and as straightforward as it sounds, will win this game. We aren't going to see Beck or Reed play lights out, little mistakes, low interception, and high yards, and then the opposite team wins, right? It's not going to happen. So the team that the quarterback that makes the least amount of mistakes is absolutely going to win this game. Next, we're looking at Miami's wide receivers versus Texas A&M secondary. We talked about it a little bit earlier. Miami has so many weapons who are elusive after the catch. Miami is averaging 14 yards after the catch, which ranks sixth nationally. And then you counteroppose that to more than six players, almost a half a dozen players on Texas A&M's defense who are 25% or higher, some 50% of the time. So it's a 50-50 game of making a tackle. How does that work out? The Aggies have an issue, like I said, with poor tackling. And blown coverages. 26 plays of at least 30 yards they've allowed in the month of November, which is more than any other team in the playoff field. That's huge. Lastly, one thing you want to keep an eye on is Texas A&M's wide receivers. Those two guys you're talking about versus Miami secondary. Miami secondary has 12 interceptions and has only allowed 11 passing touchdowns this season so far. Marcel Reed and company have 8 plays of 40 or more yards in November alone. Both Concepcion and Craver are averaging 15 to 16 yards a catch. But Texas A&M has a deep third threat that we were talking about, and Ashton Bethel Roman, who is averaging 23 yards a catch. We got to keep an eye on these three guys. We shut these guys down, though. We limit these guys' catches. Again, I can see it happen. We're getting Keontae Scott back, apparently. Fingers crossed. That's the goal. If not, have a lot of faith in our secondary. Jacoby Thomas, that's my man. Love that guy. I'm expecting big hits, maybe a pick or two. Would love to see that. Fitzgerald, maybe. OJ Federico, where you at? I'm very confident. I know Texas A&M's got the name brand recognition with their wide receivers, but I'm very confident in our secondary. I think when you look at the competition that Texas A&M has played versus us, granted this goes for both teams. These will be the hardest teams both teams will be playing, but I like our guys. I like the fact that we are clicking towards the end of the season, whereas Texas A&M is kind of stubbing their toe and stumbling a little bit towards the end. I told you I would give you a game prediction. I'm going to give it to you. I am going to say Miami 31-24 with the possibility of it being 38-24, depending on how the game goes. Don't see this being a close game, like as you can tell by the the score prediction. I think our Canes are going to win about it. We'll see you guys in the recap show. Hopefully, it'll be a victory Sunday, right, guys? But until then, be good, y'all. Win the weekend, and as always, go Canes.